Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2000 Ford Crown Victoria. Up front is a 4.6 liter V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Crown Vic for two reasons. First of all, seemingly every calendar year, I end up driving one Crown Vic in one way or another. In 2023, I drove the 90s Crown Vic. Last year, I drove the retired New York City taxi cab, and today I am driving a retired road painting Crown Vic. So this was used in McHenry County, Illinois as a road painting vehicle, and they would place cones out on construction sites or when building or resurfacing a road. That's why you will see white and yellow paint all throughout this vehicle. While it might only have 152,000 miles on it, it has lived a hard, slow life, moving at 3 miles an hour while painting the new roads. And so I'm very excited to share this Crown Vic with you. It's always good to be back at a Crown Vic, but also share this vehicle's unique story. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 4.6 liter V8 known as the modular V8. Well, they weren't horsepower kings, but these engines are easily 500,000 mile engines at the very least. They're very reliable, very stout, and part of the reason for that is because they are under-tuned. You're not asking a whole lot of this engine, so that is very nice to see. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission. It's simple, it does the job, and I have no complaints. Last but not least about the drivetrain, of course, the Crown Vic, as all Crown Vics were, is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the Ford Crown Victoria? Well, it doesn't quite float like some of its other civilian brethren. Reason for that is that this is technically the police package. You see Police Interceptor on the rear tailgate, and so it has the stiffer suspension. It's not quite as luxury-oriented as some of the Crown Victoria Limiteds or, whatever the normal trim levels were. That being said, it has good visibility. It has good pickup for what it is, and I've always enjoyed driving Crown Vics. They do feel like big boats, but I kind of welcome that with open arms. I'm a big fan at the end of the day. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 5 gauges. Off to the left is my battery voltage and fuel. In the center is the speedometer, and off to the right is the coolant temperature and oil pressure. On the steering wheel, we don't get anything, but this is the first part of the interior where you'll notice the paint has gotten everywhere. This is, of course, road paint that has worked its way into the cabin. Off to the left, we do have our panel dim, as well as our headlight switch and climate vent, as well as we do have a spotlight up on the A-pillar that does still work. Very fun to play with there. And moving on to the door, we have power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we do have a very average radio. No CD player here in the Crown Vic. It has AM and FM, but that is absolutely it. 2 climate vents along with that, and then we have some interesting buttons. So we do have the rear trunk release right there in the center. That's standard Crown Vic. However, you get this little metal switch that is unlabeled. This actually makes it so you can take the key out of the ignition and the vehicle will stay running. Cop cars usually have some type of switch like this. Delivery trucks usually have some type of switch like this. Vehicles that make frequent stops and our utility vehicles usually have something, so very cool. And off to the right, this red button is actually for the front and rear strobe lights inside the light housings. Down below, we have our climate controls, fan speed off to the left, temperature in the center, where to send it off to the right, and we do have a slide-out cup holder, so we'll do a big friggin' bottle test, but as we've tested Crown Vics in the past, this sadly fails. Then we have our overhead light switches. So this does have a light bar on the roof. I will zoom in on the model. I'm not too familiar with these. However, this was from the McHenry County Road Department, and they've left it intact. So we have the rotating lights, flashing lights, takedown lights, auxiliary lights, and then our alley lights. Very cool that this still works. Absolutely love that. Then we don't really get a center console. We do get the seats. The seats are cloth. They are cushiony and very comfortable. The owner has tried his darndest to get as much paint out of these seats as he possibly can. However, it's somewhat of a foolish battle because he'll never fully win. They are very, very comfortable, and I would imagine on a long, hard day of resurfacing and repainting roads, these were a very, very welcome sight. However, speaking of seats, we do still retain the back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. Getting in the back of the 2000 Crown Victoria. The seat is very comfortable. As you're seeing now, there's a lot of paint that has spilled back here. Again, this was used as a road painting vehicle, and according to what the owner's been able to figure out, for some point in its life, it actually had this rear door removed. Assumingly, someone would sit here with the cones here, and they would put the cones out in the road from their seating position. That's what him and I have been able to gather. I don't know how true that was. Maybe they only took it off once, but the hinges look aftermarket, so I assume that's what happened. But yeah, back here, a lot of paint being spilled and dropped and whatnot. It's not the cleanest back seat, but you know what? Even with all these cruddy layers of paint, it's still a very comfortable experience. So I wouldn't love riding back here in a road trip just because of this, but honestly, if I close my eyes, I'm on grandma's couch again, and it's nice and comfy. I just won't look at the actual seat itself. Let's hop into the trunk, which has surprisingly been saved from any paint, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back of the 2000 Crown Vic. Lift it up like that, and like I said, it has mostly saved itself from most paint. It's very, very nice to see that. These Crown Vic trunks are absolutely huge. I don't think you can find a bigger trunk in a sedan in a modern vehicle. Of course, if you go back to like the Eldorados and whatnot of the 60s and 70s, I'm sure you could find a bigger trunk. But in the modern era, post Y2K, I don't think you're gonna find a bigger trunk in a sedan. The Crown Vic has always been the king when it comes to that. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this isn't anything too crazy beyond the standard Ford Crown Victoria, besides obviously the amber light bar up on the roof and the steel wheels. This car was built and used for a very specific purpose, and we'll talk about that with the final thoughts here in a second. But they were white so they could shove the city's logo on the side. It's very bland, very basic, but very dignified. That's what I've always liked about the Crown Victoria. It kind of walks with its chest out, and I really, really like that. I think that's something to appreciate about vehicles like this. With all of this being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving another Ford Crown Victoria, but yet another Ford Crown Victoria with a very interesting story? Well, I love it. You know, I do think that this is one of, if not the best American vehicle ever made. They're affordable, rear-wheel drive, V8, reliable. They can be used in so many different scenarios. I just think that this is really when America was operating at the top of its game. Post 1960s. 1960s, we were building some very good cars. But then throughout the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, we weren't really. This generation of Ford Crown Victoria, we kind of got our swagger back in terms of building good cars, at least in this very specific use case. Some of the other American cars we were building at the time might not have been as amazing, but this really hit it out of the park, and I don't feel like Ford currently makes a vehicle that could compete with this. Yes, the Ford Explorer is now the utility vehicle, and we see those all over the place, but the fit and finish in here is way better. The engine is more reliable. So I think this was kind of a sweet spot where we had fuel injection and ABS and modern enough technology, but not so modern where it has 18 computers on board and has turbos and hybrids and all of that garbage. This was as simple but as complex as it could possibly be, and it was right in that threshold. But this car specifically shares a very important story. We need road markings on the road. We need to know when I can pass and when it is not safe to do so. We need to know where the edges of the road are, and so this car was responsible for laying that down. This car is responsible for the safety of hundreds, if not thousands, of McHenry goers. If you've ever driven a car through McHenry County, Illinois, you probably drove it over a road that this car helped paint the markings of. And I love seeing cars and driving cars that have very apparent histories. I love all of the white and yellow markings in here. Every single paint drip, every single mark, every single droplet on the rear quarter panels was from a story, from a long day, from doing the honest hard work that most of us don't want to do. But this Crown Vic and the people inside of it rose to the occasion every single time. They got the job done so we could safely drive our automobiles where we need them to go. So look, the back seats have a lot of paint on them. This car has a lot of stress that's been done to it. Is it a spring chicken? No. But we need cars like this. We need honest workhorses for our communities. And with the death of the Crown Vic, I think something was lost. And so today, I get to show you what was one of our proudest automobiles doing a very, very proud job. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And this was really, truly America at its best. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Danny for letting me borrow his Ford Crown Victoria for today's video. What an awesome piece of road-going history, and I appreciate Danny letting me film it. I also filmed his Ford Escape, and I'm appreciative of him reaching out. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.